Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my wonderful co host,
Stephen Frederick is here.
Stephen Frederick, who also happens to be Stephen the Medium. He happens to be my husband and my partner in everything that we do. Stephen, how are you?
And an attorney. You forgot that.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
and an attorney. He actually,
that's
and
that's right.
today's conversation it's gonna make a big difference because today we have an amazing conversation with somebody I'm very proud to call my friend, Mark Celentana, who is a psychologist. And today's conversation is how about propelling and excelling, how to support the next generation to success. So, if you are somebody who has an adolescent or a young adult at home, today's conversation is a conversation you do not want to miss. And Stephen, my point when you said an attorney is that you do a lot of work with juveniles.
I just left them this morning. I was
You,
just with them.
so I think you're gonna probably relate a whole lot about to the conversation that we're gonna have with Mark, and you're gonna get to meet Mark virtually. You've heard a lot of things about Mark since him and I have been friends for many years now.
Yes, yes.
But before we get to that conversation, there's plenty of updates. There's plenty of things that we need to tell people. So why don't you tell people what you're up to and what's going on?
Okay. Well, I was born in Providence, Rhode Island. Is that too early
Yeah,
to start?
yeah. Well, listen, we need a very. If you're gonna start there, we need a much longer show.
We need a show. We need a weekend. We need a week. We're going to
Just
start
saying.
there.
Hey, listen, you went there. I didn't. So, but
So,
anyways, go ahead.
so I have two big events coming up. I have one event October 31st in P-Town at Water's Edge Cinema, which I'm so excited about. It's at 6 p.m. So I'm going to do readings in the theater. And after I am done, they're going to play a fantastic Halloween flick, which is going to be really cool. And November 6th in Taunton at Forest Family Fun Center, I'm going to be doing a fundraiser that is at 5:30 p.m. That's a Sunday. Halloween, I think, is on in P-Town. It's a Monday. And that's going to be amazing, too, because I'm going to bring my signature Whisper in the Notes. We're going to do a raffle. You know, we've got a little bit more time with the fundraiser versus the event at Water's Edge because it's attached to a Halloween movie. So I think I'll be doing readings probably a little less than an hour and a half, or probably about that, versus I get a full 2 hours at the fundraiser. So that's going to be really, really phenomenal and fantastic. And another huge thing and a big thing is a couple of weeks ago when I put out on social media that we were looking for people to come to our house and have dinner, and I did a reading, and that was certainly mixed with people that came to dinner brought a recipe, a favorite recipe, a recipe that brings back memories for someone that they lost who's in spirit, and you made that recipe, put your specific Puerto Rican flavor to it, which was so great. And Elix, we had the best time with those three. And
Yes.
I bring that up because we're about to embark on another one of those adventures. So people that reached out, and we got a lot of reach outs via email that wanted to do this, watch your emails because the latest tomorrow, and I'm hoping today, I am going to start sending out some potential emails to see who can we bring next.
Yes, and if for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time or haven't seen our previous series, the Steelix series, this is a pilot we're working on, so it gets recorded, and so you guys have to go into Stephen the Medium's YouTube page and look up the Steelix series so that you can get to see how much fun we have when Stephen and I are up to our shenanigans. So this is it's an awesome. I mean, I totally enjoyed the first time that we did this whole new take on, what we're up to, and I can't wait for the upcoming next take.
Me too.
So
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
in any time, by the way, no matter what, how much he tells you he loves to be in the kitchen and getting his hands all,
Yeah,
dirty.
yeah.
That is not something that we want. It's funny. It's funny as hell to see Steven in the kitchen because he can't even tell the difference between a bread knife and a steak knife, but he thinks he cooks. So that alone is worth tuning in for. Just saying.
You describe me like I've lived on an island for the last certain amount of years, and I just got here, and I have no idea what's going on.
Do you
And
know
honest-
the difference between a bread knife and a steak
Of
knife,
course,
Steven?
of
You,
course.
really, you do.
And to just a clarification,
He does. He does.
I don't even like my hands dirty. So just saying, do not like that.
He does. And the last episode we did, we actually I was trying to get Steven to learn how to rub a chicken and how to season it, and he would not touch the chicken. Would not, no matter what I did and how I tried it. Nope, there was no him getting his hands in the chicken. So
No, well, I don't eat. First of all, I don't eat meat. Secondly, as I mentioned to you, that really would be like you dying, and before the ambulance comes or the funeral home comes, I just put you in the sink and just massage your dead body. That's what you're doing to the chicken, right? I couldn't do that. No. But I helped in other ways.
Help
though.
us all. Help us all. Yeah, you do. Well, I'm not quite. And then yeah, of course. Then the other day he's talking about how he's good in the kitchen because he's made cookies, and I'm like, for example, when was this? Was that the time that I came home and I had to actually finish the cookies for you? Yeah, that's Steven in the
Well,
kitchen.
you didn't actually finish them. I finished them. You just gave me a couple of pointers, like put the oven on.
Yes. So anyway, so it's a lot of fun. And again, if you're tuning in for the first time, you definitely have to go to YouTube, look up Steven the Medium, and take a look at the 4 episodes that we already have. And then we are going to be doing something altogether different, but a whole lot of fun. And it's coming very, very soon.
Yes.
So now, Steven, I know, again, you share a couple of weeks ago your experience, your near-death experience at your office when the deck collapsed, and has led you to find a new space. And so you're going to be moving to a new space very soon. So for people who want to, connect with you, they want to make appointments with you, how do they do that now?
Well, it's still through Stephen the Medium, but I don't have any options for in person yet because, of course, I'm not. Even though I have a new office, I'm not in there, so I can't set up things. So you can still do via Zoom, or you can book a whisper in a note. But on that same subject, when I was in juvenile, some of the court staff that I hadn't seen the last time I was there was just so sweet, Alex, that I think I got like 3 hugs from 3 different people that follow me or are friends with me on Facebook and Instagram and saw the pictures and just were just in awe of like what happened. And, all of them just said, thank God you're here in one piece. So, which was really nice.
Well, I think this is really showed us how many people really loved you and loved me and loved the two of us, and how much concern a lot of people have expressed, and that goes. I mean that there's a feeling that goes with that is it's hard to describe. There's no words to it. So just to be thankful. With that said, though, I do want to give a shout out to he's a client, but most importantly, he is our friend Bill Whalen, because he has been exceptionally wonderful to both you and I. And I'm Marie Pepin. I don't want to, both of them have been amazing, and I just want to again say thank you, and give them both a shout out.
It starts from the top, and Bill is just unlike most people you meet, honestly, he certainly has a heart of gold, and I'm so thankful that you know I was able to be introduced to him through you. But and when you talk about Marie and talk about Jason, all of them, and that's why I said it starts from the top down, is that he's just created these incredible people that work with him. And and from for you, you get the benefit of getting to see them all the time. And and sort of intermittently I do too. So a big shout out and a big hug to all of them.
Yeah, I'm very blessed, and there are certain people that pass or cross your pathway, or and you know that they're here for a reason, and you know that they bring something that is really special, and him and his whole family. I mean, we know his wife Missy and his children, and very very special people. And again, I say the same thing about Marie. Marie is just amazing, and so is her husband Dennis. And yeah, you mentioned Jason J, who is just also an incredible human. So a shout out to all of them, at Whalen Associates. So having said that, let's see, Stephen. We have again an amazing guest coming up, my friend Mark Salantana, and we are really going to be talking about how to help young people propel and excel, and how really support them to succeed. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to have Mark join us. So we'll be right back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex, and with me, my wonderful co-host, attorney, husband. What else?
Stephen F is here.
And Stephen, the medium, of course. And Stephen, today we have a wonderful show. We're going to be talking about propelling and excelling, how to really help adolescents and young people succeed. And for that, we have an amazing guest, somebody who happens to be a friend of mine, somebody that I admire, Mr. Mark Salantena. Mark is a licensed psychologist. He's also a professional certified coach. Actually, Mark and I went to coaching school together, and he's also certified as a health service provider in psychology through the National Register of Health Service Psychologists. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics and also a PhD in psychology from Miami University. Um, and Mark is somebody who is super qualified, and as I said earlier, I admire him a lot. He understands that adolescents and young adults have an opportunity to establish a foundation for success with guidance. The young generation is destined for great future if they are armed with the right interpersonal tools, self-reflection, self-care, discipline. Mark enjoys facilitating the process in methods to make success possible. So if you have a young person at home, you want to be listening to our guest. Mr. Mark, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Coach Elix. It's so great to be on the call, and thank you so much for inviting me. And Stephen the Medium, it's so nice to finally speak with you.
Same here.
You after the period of time. So I'm very excited to talk about, which really is an origin story about my own business on propelling and excelling toward success. And look forward to speaking with you today.
And so do we. I know, Mark, that we have a lot of listeners who have young people at home. So this conversation will certainly bring a lot of meaning and value to many, many, many listeners. You have over 20 years of clinical experience, and you're now focused on helping adolescents and young adults. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how has that been, and how have you reached this point?
Sure. So I started out college as a first-generation college student and majored in economics. I had a job out of college working in a training program through Merrill Lynch, and very quickly recognized that it was not satisfying my purpose needs. And in a conversation with a psychologist myself, I discovered that I had a more than a latent interest, but a true interest in helping others, in helping them clarify sort of their life's purpose. That led me down the pathway of clinical psychology. And after many, many years and many years of training, I graduated and did some additional work within organizations and family businesses and realized that I was able to apply my knowledge about adolescence and lifespan development into the business world. But in that process, I also discovered that there was a real need for late teens, late adolescents into early adults to really get sort of good guidance. It is a section of the population that really doesn't get the connection between the psychotherapy and the business assistance, and it's something that I satisfy today. So a lot of my work these days is with individuals between the ages of 15 and, let's say, 30, who are somehow associated or affiliated with a family business. And that process can be very daunting without the proper preparation. So from my perspective, my work is to help guide them to navigate family businesses and their own personal stresses and strains as best as I can.
And Mark, why, or where is that passion come from? Because when I'm listening to you, I can see that there's passion behind the work that you do. Why this specific group?
I believe it was from my own experience early on, where I went to school, invested a lot of time, money, energy, only to recognize that I was going down a pathway that really wasn't for me. Didn't really speak to my passion, to my interest, where I wanted to see my life going. And I realized that if I didn't take control of it quickly, it was going to get out ahead of me. And so that is the impetus for the work that I do today. Propel and Excel sort of grew up out of that, and so Propel and Excel is the name of my business here in Pennington, New Jersey, and it really reflects the need to move very quickly into a decision, and then it also sort of suggests why we should be excelling or doing things at the highest level possible. When we have passion around something, we tend to do it really well, and this was a name that was suggested by my wife. And she said, you're moving people along, you're trying to propel them towards something, and you want them to achieve excellence. And I said, that's a great name. Let's go with Propel and Excel.
Yeah, I can so see that in you. By the way, I've known you for many years, and I knew the name of your business. I thought it was super cool, but this is the first time that I actually understand where the name comes from, and I think it's super, super, super cool. Now, I'm going to say this. Stephen is also an attorney. He happens to be an attorney in juvenile court. So, I know that my next question he'll probably relate to, or, be curious to listen to your response. But the relationship between adolescents, young people, and their parents can be challenging. And Stephen for sure knows that. Are there any reasons for these conflicts, in your opinion, Mark?
I think some of it is natural maturation, right? So if we go back through history, children have been at odds with their parents for many, many, many centuries. I think what we see today is that there are additional demands placed upon young adults and late adolescents. And so that has everything to do with colleges and education and career and relationships. Right now we have an economy that really doesn't support young adults in probably the way that it should as far as affordability of housing and food and things of that nature. So I think some of it is just the maturation piece. I think some of it is environmental. What I see in my work, particularly with those individuals who, let's say in the early to mid-20s, who are working in some way in a family business, they're oftentimes very much challenged by the family dynamics that exist. There's typically someone who's in place who's communicating some aspect of what the expectation is, and that could be around performance, it could be around behavior. And those individuals are really sort of struggling to navigate because a trusted member of their family is asking them to do something that they may or may not be equipped to do. And I think that's sort of the root of the challenge. That's in a population that is relatively well-suited to deal with the struggles. However, for adolescents and children who have greater difficulties from an emotional or psychological standpoint, I think it can be especially difficult if they don't have appropriate guidance. Someone that they can rely on, someone that they can sort of point to, someone that they can trust to help them navigate everything that I just described.
Stephen, I assume that those are the kids that you then get to deal with in court. Do you have any questions for Mark?
Yeah, I think, Mark, listening to you in just the first couple of minutes, it's so terrific and so great because I've been dealing with juvenile court for, I just hit my 20th year. And, I've seen it, I certainly have seen it all. And when you talk about that age range, I always think about kids that I've represented that are minors but are in custody of the state, and that, they're taken care of. Their basic needs are taken care of through, whatever foster home or situation DCF the state has. But when they hit 18, it struck me when you said the demands, because when they hit 18, certainly there's some support, but these kids just get thrown into these high demands of what do I do now? I don't even have my biological parents. Do you ever deal with or have kids in that situation that just are either foster care kids, or there's such a huge need for that?
Yeah, so there earlier in my career, Stephen, I did do work from a forensic standpoint as far as placement purposes for children in foster care. And I think what you're referencing is something that resonates quite a bit for me, which is at 18, the switch flips. It moves from a custodial environment where the care and good care of the child is foremost to a position where we now treat that child as an adult, knowing full well that the experiences, both social and psychological, have not really probably been met, and yet that individual is now considered an adult with all the legal rights associated with it. So I do appreciate fully that, and one of the things that I do frequently with my clients is really try to identify where they are on the developmental spectrum, around relationships, around experiences, around sort of their own emotions. And it's, as you probably well know, and I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, individuals who come from a foster care environment are oftentimes a bit delayed. And so in that delay, the 18 comes much faster than someone who is in a non-foster care environment.
Yeah, and absolutely. I just again listening to you, and it just, I wish I could just clone you, Mark, and just bring you to Massachusetts because it would be very.
I've been trying, and
well, it sounds
somehow.
like that meal you guys. I was going to say, it sounds like that meal you're having. I should probably be there with maybe an Italian recipe or two.
Well, maybe we would consider
We would love that.
We would absolutely consider that. Listen, Mark, I want to take a break because there's plenty more questions, but we do have to take a commercial break. So hang in there with us, and we will be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elex. I'm your host, Coach Elex, and with me, my wonderful co-host,
Stephen is here.
Stephen the Medium is here, and we are talking today to my friend Mark Solentana, who is an expert in working with young adolescents and young adults and help them overcome daily challenges and help them succeed. And thank you, Mark, for being with us.
Great. Thanks. Good to be back.
And so, Mark, I know that the transition, of children from adolescence to young adulthood can be challenging both for them and for the parents. So, I have two questions though. What would you tell parents how they can manage these transitions to avoid conflicts, and if they're young people listening and they are experiencing some of these challenges, what would you tell them?
Mm-hmm. So two great questions. I'll address the question regarding communication with parents. So as teens move into adulthood, and that's moving from high school into college and early into their careers, that transition is fraught with all kinds of issues that they may or may not be aware of. They may be things that are visible to them or things that are invisible to them. The reality of the matter is that kids are much more resilient than we give them credit for, generally speaking. With that being said, there are some individuals who mightily struggle through the process. However, the vast majority of individuals who move through adolescence into an early career are quite resilient. And what that means is that they're able to bounce back from setbacks. And in my own practice, I've noticed that parents are much more attuned to the emotional tenor of their children, and any disappointment or sadness has to be eradicated. And my theory is that that sadness or that difficulty is something that is a challenge, that once the individual is able to work through it, there's a learning that's associated with it, and it creates greater strength later in life. And so parents who are quick to try to solve things or make a pain go away, stop doing it. Connect with your child or your young adult and figure out if they're able to problem solve it with your assistance. For those young adults who are on the call, who are listening in, it's really important to be able to communicate to your parents what your needs are. Parents will assume that certain things are needed unless you tell them otherwise. And so this is a call to action to be very explicit about what you believe you need. And if you're not sure what you need being able to communicate that as well. And parents are oftentimes very much interested in helping and will go way out of their way in order to make it happen. It's really up to the child to set the stage for success.
Wow, that's wonderful. Stephen, anything that you want to add, given the relationships that you build with these young people as well, and what you know, some of the challenges that they're facing with their parents?
Yeah, I mean, I think what exactly Mark just spoke about is a daily occurrence with me in juvenile. I mean, again, each child is different, but one of the things, that's front and center is just like Mark said about communication. And, one thing that I'm very conscious about how I say it, but I always try to get to some of my clients, if they're minor. So once they hit 18, then I lose jurisdiction, or the court loses jurisdiction. But if they're younger, I always tell them that, you got to remember, parents are not always perfect either. So we sort of going off what Mark just said, is that sometimes they need to be led back into where you are and what they need to know, and that communication piece is just so important. So I'm very much in alignment with what Mark is saying.
And one of the things that I would add is, and this is really the work that I do quite a bit these days, which is really working with leadership level teams, oftentimes populated in families with young adults. And that transition from a singular entity, an identified patient in psychotherapy terms, into an individual who will be a leader within a business or organization is a monumental task. And it is one that really needs to be structured and organized. And most of the work that I do these days is really around that dynamic. It's being able to sort of put enough structures and supports in place to generate success from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective, and making that shift from being a needy child into being a full-fledged, effective adult. And really love that type of work, and it's been something throughout my career, being a psychologist who has a lifespan perspective pretty much from birth to death. Being able to see that sort of play out as an individual goes through schooling and moves into the workplace has been extremely rewarding for me.
Wow, that's wonderful. And one of the things I'm hearing you say, Mark, is that really the relationship between the young adult or the young generation and their parent is really essential, because it's associated with self-confidence, empathy, and psychological well-being. What if there's somebody, a young person listening and saying, gee, how do I foster and create these a particular this kind of relationship with my parent? What would you tell them?
Don't try too hard. I think that the relationship between the child and parent, particularly in adolescence, in Western society may be a little bit overblown in the sense that adolescents do get a lot of their cues for behaviors from their peers. And so they look across the room, they look across the bus, they look across wherever it is that they are, and they see what their peers are doing, and we tend to mimic that as humans. We start to identify what is rewarded and what is not rewarded. And if you think about your own experience, if your parents told you not to do something, you might be more inclined to try to do it.
We do it.
Right, or just do it. Peers are great at sort of establishing what the expected behavior is for us. It can be problematic in the sense that it can be restrictive, and so for those kids who feel as though they're being boxed into a corner by their peers, that's the point in time where that conversation with the parent as a thought partner, right, which is a little bit different than, hey, I'm going to solve this problem for you. So it's really asking your parent to be a thought partner. Hey, I have a problem in front of me. Can you help me out with this? And as children get older, as they move into young adulthood, ideally they're getting to the point where they're using their parents as thought partners who help them solve problems, identify challenges in their environment, and really take advantage of opportunities. Mm-hmm. So this process is something that goes on throughout our lives, but really starts to solidify in that late teens, early 20s period.
Stephen, one of the things I've learned listening to you, because I mean, Stephen comes home and he shares stories after story about his experience dealing with these young people. But one of the things I've really learned from you is that you take your time to really have those adolescents experience being heard by you, because they often don't experience that from their parents.
No, that's correct. As a matter of fact, you and I just talked about last weekend on a Saturday. I had a phone call come in, and it was my 15-year-old client calling me because he wanted to talk to me. You know, that was something that just gave me goosebumps because, you know, I've been doing this, like I said, for many years, and just in conversations with other attorneys, that usually doesn't happen, that they reach out to their attorneys because, you know, so many of them just look at attorneys as suits and another adult, they're not going to be here to help me. So it was really great. But one question I had for Mark, if I may, Mark, is based on your business and what you've done, I'm curious to know how, like, what you've learned based on what you're doing to cater to the different, each adolescent, each minor is so different. I think of myself as a boy at 8 years old that my dad committed suicide. So if you had me or I was exposed to you at, say, 20 or 21, clearly I'm different than somebody who is having their own issues but has two parents. You know, me stepping forward and looking at you coming from a place of, I'm not good enough. My dad committed suicide and left his son. What have you learned with all these different kids?
Big question, and probably not a succinct and short answer. But and first off, you know, credit to you to have a child reach out and ask for your assistance and to be able to bend your ear, because that definitely indicates some degree of alignment and engagement and trust that they're putting in you. I think if I boil it down, is very similar, Stephen. I think that I've noticed that children and young adults who will put their trust in me, it's a sacred trust at some level. It's something that I need to hold very true and dear, and I can't violate. And so I think it's really about sort of setting realistic expectations, not over-promising and under-delivering, and being true to your word. So what I say I tend to do, I do, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that I'm not violating that. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, all things considered. And trust develops across time. And so when I listen to children and young adults who struggle in any environment, whether that be school or work or relationship, oftentimes the root of that is this mistrust of how people will interact, perceive, or believe them. And so it's really important to have an ear that is sensitive to that and is willing to lend a helping hand.
Super, super fascinating. And Stephen, anything else?
No, that was great.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Mark, we do need to take another break, commercial break, but hang in there because I definitely want to talk to you about you talked about identifying young leaders early on, but I want to talk about career choice and development when we come back. So hang in there. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my wonderful co-host,
Stephen.
Stephen, who happens to be an attorney, a medium, and also my husband, and a wonderful co-host. But also, we have my friend Mark Salantena, who really is an expert in supporting adolescents and young adults in propelling and excelling and helping them succeed. Mark, welcome back. So one of the things, Mark, that you talked about earlier was, identifying early on who are those, young people who have this capacity to be leaders. And as you were talking about that, the one thing that sort of, I started thinking about was, when it comes to career choice and development, parents definitely have an essential role, but often we sort of like we confuse selecting the ideal path for the children versus supporting the children in selecting the ideal path. So the question for you is how do you handle, or how can they handle conflict that arises from a scenario where a parent wants a different career path for their children, or they see a different career from their children's choice?
So this is something very important and close to my heart because I do see this frequently with individuals who are graduating from college in particular, or sort of trying to select a major, and that is, are they living out their parents' dream or are they living out their dream? And that clarity around who owns the path for the future is critically important. Individuals who navigate it well are able to be self-reflective and understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their desires, and really the opportunities in the environment. So we really may want something, but there may not be a position for that. With that being said, I will acknowledge that this is probably one of the greatest times in history for individuals to move into, and I'm want to say the workplace, but I think opportunities of an entrepreneurial nature, of self-sufficiency, flexibility as far as employment is concerned. And so even though it may feel as though things are dire at times and may be very challenging for someone who's entering into the workforce, the opportunities in front of most young adults these days is quite substantial. The conflict with parents, to go back to that, that is really about level setting. What's sort of the realistic expectations of the parents, and what is that skill set of the child? And my work in using assessments, in having conversations with young adults, and having conversations even with parents around what their goals and dreams are for their child, really helps to clarify what the pathway might be. And surprisingly, we oftentimes self-select into careers that are very good for us. We may not possess the skill set, and then it's really a matter of acquiring the knowledge and skills in order to skill up into it. And that can be its own consultation around how to go about doing it within the college, typically the college or graduate school setting.
Wow. Let me ask you this, Mark. At what point, because I know a lot of parents struggle with this, at what point should a parent be confident enough to loosen the grip on their children and let them be their own?
If you're asking like at an age or a developmental stage, I think generally speaking, late high school is about the time from a career perspective that children start to identify areas of interest. The best thing that a parent can do is encourage their child to explore whatever it is that they might be interested in doing. So a lot of late adolescents have a desire to work outside. And working outside sounds great in the summer when the weather is very nice and friends are out at the beach, etc., and they're catching a tan, only to recognize very quickly that as the weather changes, as they're out in the 100-degree heat, it's not so great working outside. And I think part of that is we can say that as parents until we're blue in the face, that you're probably not going to enjoy that. But until you actually experience it, you don't know it. And I think that that's one of the greatest things that parents can do is put children in environments where they're getting real-world experience at an early age.
Yeah, and I guess I'm asking the questions, but there's really not. I imagine that there's not really a right or wrong, rather than it's an experience, right? So you got to tune in, you got to really listen, you got to pay attention to your child and sort of navigate based on what you're experiencing. Now, I will share these with you, Mark. Stephen and I have a very close friend, and he shared with us, and this is slightly different, but he several months ago he shared with us that his young boy, 13 years old, came out to him as gay, and one of the things that I was really actually super impressed with was that, in my experience, certainly in my own personal experience, my parents would have been horrified, right? Or they would have said, oh my God, it's a transition, or oh my God, you'll get over, or oh my God, that's not right. Our friend, his approach was, I'm going to love you no matter what. And he just took this approach of really tuning in, listening, and almost like stepping into this journey with his son together. And I'm telling you, I walked away. And Stephen, we both know him, but you watch him deal with his son. And again, he's 13 years old, so certainly not in high school. Although he's 13, high school. I can't
he's
remember.
in high school. Freshman.
He's in high school, but it's a 13-year-old, and it's super fascinating how to the extent of how he's managing this. I'm telling you, I'm blown away. I mean, I would give him a Medal of Honor because I think what he's doing, it's really helping these young men uh, be feel good about who he is rather than the opposite, which is what we often do in our society. What are your thoughts?
Wow, it sounds like the father is giving that child unconditional positive regard. He is extending an understanding that is facilitating that young man's growth. And so, Medal of Honor, yes, I think that is very difficult to do because it is countercultural at some level, and it's hard for us to sometimes go against the grain. But I think there is a shift that is going on, and it's a greater understanding about just humanity, and it's just about understanding and appreciating that we all have a unique path that we take, neither good nor bad, but is. And as we take that path, we need the support of others. Because we need validation. Humans need validation. They need the ability to have someone say, you know what, that's a really good path that you're taking, or I really support you, and I understand you, and I'm not judging you. And I think that's what you're sort of describing. So, and that's true throughout all of my work. I see that need across the board, and I can say anecdotally that when someone receives that degree of assistance, the outcomes are wonderful. They're great. And my suspicion is if I were making a prediction, this would be a young man who would adjust quite well.
I would agree with you, Stephen. What would you say? You've seen this with me as well.
What do you mean, seen with you?
Like you know our friend, his kid. So
Yeah, it's as what you just said, Elix, and what Mark pretty much reiterated. It's so great. I mean, there's a part of me that just says, well, of course you should be doing that. That's your son, regardless. But I know that's in the ideal world, the fact that he's giving that support and unconditional love. It's just a fantastic thing. Just it really is for this young man.
yeah, I know. I never got that. I thought to myself, my God, if I had gotten what he's getting, geez, Louise, my life would have been a altogether different kind of life because it's again watching from my perspective, my viewpoint, my experience. I'm super blown away, by this, and I think you're absolutely on point, Mark. This is gonna be a kid that it's gonna grow up to be extremely successful. I'm positive of that. But now, Mark, I do have a question for you. I mean, we're reaching the top of the hour, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to ask you. I know you took on being the president of the International Coaching Federation, the New Jersey chapter. So, how has that experience been for you so far?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I am the current president of ICF New Jersey, which is the International Coaching Federation. And here in New Jersey, we're about 550 members strong. So these are individuals who are at various stages of their own personal development and professional development related to the practice of coaching. And so I have a absolutely wonderful board that I work very closely with and advancing the needs of our 550 members. We do that through advocacy, education, training, etc. And it's been a wonderful experience from a professional standpoint. It really helps me hone in on working really well with teams and with my board as my team, and being able to sort of disseminate information to interested parties, which are our members. So we do a lot of really fantastic types of activities as a membership-driven board or membership-driven organization. So one thing that I would like to just sort of call out is we've participated in what's called the Ignite program, which is part of the ICF Foundation. And the foundation is interested and motivated to helping underserved populations. And as a chapter, our members were invited to participate in providing pro bono coaching, executive level coaching, to directors of New Jersey homeless shelters. And so
Fabulous.
our New Jersey homeless shelters were receiving executive level coaching from credentialed coaches, and we did that. We just wrapped that up probably a few months ago, but a great opportunity to give back to the community and something where we were able to tap into our members' experience and get something back in return for our communities. So, but yeah, great experience, all things considered, and highly encourage individuals to become members of their local chapters if they're not already doing so.
And listen, our show is heard because we are available online, so it's heard throughout the world. So I'm sure that we got people in New Jersey who may be listening and saying, "I want to be part of that." So thank you for sharing. And Mark, to just because we are at the top of the hour, I wanna ask you to provide our listeners or parents or young adults who are listening with what is something that they could do right now immediately that could help them propel and excel.
Great question. What they can do immediately is identify a mentor or coach that they can bounce ideas off of in a safe and non-judgmental way. And that can be a trusted adult. It can be a formal coach. It could be a mentor in the workplace, but someone that they can bounce ideas off of, and they are able to charge that person with focusing in on their development. Like, what is over the horizon, as opposed to what is the problem that I need to solve? What is the thing that I need to be sort of focused in on down the road? And I think that would probably be the best thing, not only for young adults and adolescents, but for even middle-aged adults, like maybe us, would be really good for us to go ahead and identify.
That's wonderful. Stephen, any parting words for Mark?
Yes, Mark, just thank you for everything you do. This has been a fantastic show, and getting to dig in a little bit more on who Mark is, and I know it's so needed for so many young adolescents. So thank you.
And of course,
Thank you.
I'm super thankful that I get to call you my friend, and hopefully, Stephen and I will get to, get you to come visit. Stephen, he heard food, and that's all he needed to hear. I swear to God, food, and all of the sudden, he's like, I'm coming. When? Give me a date. So just saying, Mark. But listen, thank you for giving your time, your attention so generously. We are very thankful, and you have an open invitation, Mark, to come back anytime.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you so much, Elix. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish everyone the best for the coming weekend.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
And with that said, we've reached the top of the hour. Stephen, tell people where they can find you.
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium. That's
Website,
it.
social media, it doesn't matter. As I said before, just open your front door and yell out Stephen the Medium, and I'll appear.
Well, you are magical, so
That's right.
That could be that could definitely happen. And you do have two shows: one in Provincetown in Massachusetts at Water's Edge Cinema on October 31st. You also have a fundraiser for a skating club. I mean, really, that's how awesome is that?
November 6th, and you can check all of that. All the information is on my website.
On your website, and you are available no matter where you are, anywhere in the world. You can actually schedule a Zoom meeting with Stephen, and
Yes.
I highly recommend it. And for me, if you're listening for the first time, you want to connect with me, you can find me at Coach Elix anywhere on social media, and I look forward to coming back and being with you. I don't believe that I'm here next weekend because you and I are going to be, well, I'm going to Florida for business, and then you're meeting me, and we're going to take a nice long weekend at Animal Kingdom. But
Yes.
we will be back the week after. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.